I don't know why I'm posting this. Maybe I just need to get it out of my head because it's been eating at me for months now. I haven't talked about it outside of my family, and even then, we don't really talk about it. It's like some unspoken rule in the house, we pretend it didn't happen. But it did happen. And no matter how much I try to rationalize it, there's this awful feeling deep in my gut that tells me I'll never have a real explanation. So, here goes. This all started a few months ago. My son, Liam, is 6. He's always been a deep sleeper. Once he's out, he's out. It takes a whole storm to wake him up. So, when he started telling us that someone was walking past his door at night, I didn't think much of it. I just assumed he was dreaming. At first, it was little comments here and there. The man walked by again last night. Or, he stops sometimes, but he never comes in. I brushed it off. Kids have vivid imaginations, right? I figured he was seeing shadows from the streetlights outside or just making things up the way kids do. Maybe he liked the attention. But then, I noticed something strange. Every night when I walked past his room before going to bed, his door would be open, just a crack. Just enough for him to see out into the hallway. That was weird. My wife, Emily, and I always made sure his door was shut before we went to bed. He hated sleeping with it open. He said the hallway looked too long at night, like it stretched forever into the dark. The first time I noticed it, I assumed he had gotten up to use the bathroom and forgot to close it. So, I shut it and didn't think about it again. But then, the next night, same thing. And the night after that. And the night after that. After a week, I asked him about it. "Hey, buddy, do you keep opening your door at night?" He looked up at me from his cereal bowl and shook his head. "No. The man does." I swear, my stomach dropped. "What man?" I tried to sound casual, like I wasn't totally creeped out. Liam shrugged, shoving another spoonful of cereal into his mouth like it was nothing. "Just the man in the hallway." I exchanged a glance with Emily. She raised an eyebrow but didn't say anything. We both knew how kids could be. It was probably just a recurring dream, and he was convinced it was real. Still, something about the way he said it, it made my skin crawl. That night, I made a point to check on him multiple times before going to bed. His door was shut. I even stood outside his room for a few seconds, just listening. Nothing. Silence. I went to bed, telling myself it was just a kid's imagination. I woke up around 3 a.m., throat dry, in need of a glass of water. As I stepped into the hallway, I felt off. You know that weird, instinctual feeling when something just isn't right? The house was quiet, but there was a presence in the air, like the space wasn't empty. I glanced toward Liam's room, and my heart nearly stopped. His door was cracked open. And beyond that, in the dim glow of the nightlight from his room, I saw something move. A shadow, tall and slow, gliding down the hallway toward the stairs. I didn't think. I lunged forward, flipping the hallway light on. The space was empty. The house was silent. I rushed to Liam's room. He was curled up under his blanket, eyes closed, breathing slow and steady. Still asleep. I took a deep breath and stepped back into the hallway, staring toward the stairs. My brain scrambled for logical explanations. Maybe I had imagined it. Maybe it was a trick of the light. Maybe. Then I noticed something that made my blood run cold. The floor vent near Liam's door, the one that always rattled when someone stepped near it. It was still moving. Something, or someone, had been there that I didn't sleep that night. How could I? I sat in bed, staring at the dark doorway, every nerve in my body on edge. Emily was sleeping beside me, unaware that something was wrong. I kept telling myself it had to be nothing. A trick of the light. A half-asleep hallucination. But that damn floor vent. It was still moving when I saw it. You don't imagine something like that. At some point, I must have dozed off because the next thing I remember was the sound. A soft, creaking sound. It was subtle, but in the dead silence of the house, it felt deafening. I sat up instantly, heart hammering. I turned toward the bedroom door, half expecting to see someone standing there. But there was nothing. Then I realized what it was. Footsteps. Slow, deliberate footsteps. Coming from the hallway. I felt cold all over. My mind was racing. I strained my ears, hoping, praying that I was just hearing the house settling or something. But no. These were footsteps. And they were coming closer. I swallowed hard and reached over to nudge Emily awake. Hey. Hey, wake up. I whispered. She groaned and shifted under the covers. What? What time is it? Shoo. I held up a hand. Listen. For a few seconds, there was nothing but silence. Then. Creak. The sound was right outside our bedroom door. Emily went rigid. I could feel her body tense beside me. Neither of us moved. We just listened. Creak. It sounded like someone shifting their weight, standing just outside our room. I felt frozen, like if I moved, even breathed too loudly, whoever was out there would know. Emily's hand found mine under the covers, squeezing it so tight it hurt. Then, silence. We waited. 5 seconds. 10 seconds. Nothing. Then, from the hallway. A whisper. So faint I almost wasn't sure if I'd heard it. A breathy, low sound. But the worst part? I couldn't understand it. It wasn't words. It wasn't a voice I recognized. It was just a soft, muttering noise, right outside our door. Emily clamped a hand over her mouth. Her breathing was sharp, fast. I wasn't thinking anymore, I had to move. I reached toward the nightstand, fumbling for my phone. If someone was in the house, I needed to call 911. But as soon as I grabbed it. Creak. A sudden, heavy footstep, moving away. Not fast. Not like someone running. Just, walking. Down the hall. Toward Liam's room. My body reacted before my brain could. I shot up, throwing the blankets off. Emily gasped but didn't stop me. I grabbed the bedside lamp, not a weapon, but it was something, and yanked the door open. The hallway was dark. And it was empty. I turned my head toward Liam's room. His door was open again. Wider this time. I bolted. I didn't care what I might see, I just knew I had to get to my son. I shoved the door open so hard it slammed against the wall. Liam was asleep. Peaceful. Tucked under his blanket, face turned toward the wall. I scanned the room, closet doors shut, nothing out of place. Nothing there. I backed up slowly, my breath shaky, my heart pounding. But as I reached the doorway, something caught my eye. Something that made my blood turn to ice. Liam's closet door. It was shut, but the bottom, where the wood met the carpet. There was a shadow. A long, thin shadow sticking out from underneath. Like someone was standing inside. Like someone was waiting that I didn't breathe. I didn't move. I just stood there, staring at that thin, unnatural shadow stretching out from beneath Liam's closet door. My whole body was screaming at me to do something, but my brain was locked in this horrible loop. What if I open it? What if I don't? What if something is inside? What if it's not? I couldn't just leave it. I clenched my fingers around the lamp in my hand, my palms slick with sweat. Slowly, I reached for the closet handle. My heart felt like it was going to explode. 1. 2. I yanked it open. The door slammed against the wall. Nothing. Empty. Just Liam's little row of shirts, his stuffed animals stacked on the floor, a few scattered toys. My breath came out in a sharp exhale. My body felt weak, like I'd been holding myself together by a thread. I let out a shaky laugh under my breath. I was losing my damn mind. I reached down to move one of the toys out of the way. And then I noticed it. The carpet. It looked wrong. Flattened in places, like someone had been standing there for a long time. And just as that realization hit me, something else did, too. The air inside the closet. It was warm. Like someone had just been in there. I stepped back so fast I nearly tripped. My whole body screamed, "Get out!" I grabbed Liam, scooped him right out of bed without hesitation. He barely stirred, just mumbled something in his sleep as I held him against my chest. I turned and bolted for the hallway. Emily was already standing outside our bedroom, her face pale. She knew something was wrong. "What? What is it?" she whispered. "We're sleeping in our room tonight. Lock the door." I didn't explain. I couldn't. I just carried Liam into our bedroom, shut the door, and locked it. I placed him on the bed between us, where he curled up without waking. Emily didn't question it. She just grabbed my hand under the covers and held it tight. Neither of us slept. And outside our door, in the middle of the night, we heard the floor vent rattle. I don't know when I fell asleep, but when I woke up, the sun was peeking through the curtains, painting the walls in soft gold. For a second, just a brief second, I almost convinced myself that everything was fine. That last night had been some half-dream, my paranoia twisting shadows into nightmares. Then I felt Liam's tiny body pressed against my side. And I remembered why he was in our bed. Emily was already awake, sitting up against the headboard, eyes distant. She must have been awake all night. She looked at me, and I knew she was thinking the same thing I was. There was something in our house. I didn't want to scare Liam, so I forced a smile as I brushed his hair back. "Hey, bud. You hungry?" He yawned, rubbing his eyes. "Yeah. Go downstairs. Mommy will make you some breakfast." Emily hesitated before nodding, scooping him up. But before she left, she whispered under her breath, "We need to check the cameras." She was right. We had a security system, motion-activated cameras in the hallway, the front door, and the backyard. I didn't check them last night. I didn't want to. Because if they had caught something, it would mean this wasn't just my imagination. I grabbed my phone, pulled up the security app, and scrolled to last night's footage. The hallway camera. 3:14 a.m. I tapped it. The video loaded. At first, nothing. The hallway was dimly lit from the nightlight in Liam's room. The door was slightly open. The house was still. Then, from the far left side of the frame, movement. I gripped the phone tighter. A shadow. Tall. Unnaturally thin. Moving toward Liam's door. But it wasn't walking. It was gliding. My stomach turned to ice. The shape came to a stop right outside Liam's door. I could barely make out its features, just darkness, stretched into something vaguely human. Then, the door opened wider. Not like it had been pushed. Like it had been pulled from inside the room. Liam was right there. I felt my breath catch in my throat as I watched. He rolled over slightly in his sleep, his little face illuminated by the nightlight. And then, the shadow tilted its head. Like it was watching him. Like it was studying him. I wanted to shut the video off. I didn't want to see more. But I couldn't look away. The shadow lingered for another few seconds. Then, slowly, it turned. And it faced the camera. My skin prickled. My vision blurred as my eyes refused to believe what I was seeing. The shadow had no face. No eyes. Just a dark, featureless void. But I knew, it was looking right at me. Then, in a slow, unnatural movement, it raised one long, bony finger to where its lips should have been. The screen glitched. The video cut out. I dropped the phone. I shot up so fast my head spun. My whole body was trembling. My mouth was dry. My hands were ice cold. I stumbled out of the room, nearly tripping over my own feet as I ran down the stairs. Emily was in the kitchen, making breakfast, Liam sitting at the table, swinging his legs. They had no idea what I had just seen. I grabbed Emily's arm so hard she gasped. "We need to leave." Her eyes widened. "What? What are you?" "Pack a bag. Now." Liam looked up at me, confused. "Daddy, what's wrong?" I forced a smile, but I knew my face was pale, my hands shaking. "Nothing, bud. We're just gonna go stay at Grandma's for a little bit, okay?" Liam blinked, chewing on his cereal. Then, in the most casual voice, he said something that made my heart stop. "Is the man coming too?" I felt like I was suffocating. Emily's breath hitched. She heard it too. I crouched down next to Liam, forcing my voice to stay calm. "What do you mean, buddy?" He shrugged. "He comes with us sometimes." I stared at him. My ears were ringing. "Sometimes?" I repeated, my voice barely above a whisper. Liam nodded, stirring his cereal. "Yeah. He was in the car last time we went to Grandma's. He sits in the back seat." I couldn't breathe. Liam took another bite and smiled. "He doesn't like Grandma's house, though. He never stays long. We left in 15 minutes. I didn't care about packing neatly, I just threw some clothes into a duffel bag, grabbed my keys, and got Liam into his jacket. Emily was pale, silent, moving in a daze. Neither of us wanted to say it out loud, but we both knew, something was attached to us. And the worst part? Liam thought it was normal. I didn't let him out of my sight. The whole time I was packing, he sat on the bed, swinging his legs, humming to himself. That same damn tune he always hummed when he was playing alone. A slow, eerie little melody. I'd never thought twice about it before. But now, I was terrified to ask him where he learned it. Emily was shaking as we got into the car. She turned in her seat, glancing at the back. "He's not." "Don't," I cut her off. "Don't look. Just drive." She nodded, gripping the wheel. I kept my eyes locked on the road ahead as we pulled out of the driveway. I wouldn't look in the mirror. I refused to. Liam, strapped into his booster seat, was playing with his stuffed dinosaur. He seemed completely fine. Halfway down the road, he giggled. "He doesn't like cars," he said, kicking his little feet. "He never stays in cars." My stomach twisted. "Liam, buddy," I forced my voice to stay calm, "who are you talking about?" He gave me that innocent, puzzled look. Like I should already know. "The man in the hallway." Emily's knuckles were white on the wheel. "Liam," she said, barely above a whisper, "what does he look like?" Liam tilted his head, as if trying to find the right words. Then he just shrugged. "I dunno. He's kinda blurry." My heart stopped. "Blurry?" I repeated. He nodded, swinging his legs. "Yeah. Like when I close my eyes real tight and I can still see shadows." My vision blurred. I turned forward, staring out the windshield, my hands gripping my thighs so tight my nails dug into my skin. Emily was speeding now, fingers tight around the wheel. I finally let myself glance at the rearview mirror. The back seat was empty. I almost let out a breath of relief. Then the camera screen glitched. Our car had a small backup camera display. It flickered violently, static streaking across the screen. Emily's breath caught. She saw it too. For half a second, just half a horrifying second. The screen showed something tall and thin standing behind the car. Not walking. Not moving. Just standing there. The screen cut to black. Emily let out a strangled noise and slammed the gas. I twisted in my seat, looking out the back window, nothing. The road was empty. But my hands were shaking so hard I could barely move. Liam just sighed. I told you. He doesn't like cars. I didn't say a word. I just faced forward. And I prayed we made it to my mother's house before the sun went down. My mother's house sat at the edge of a quiet wooded area, the kind of place that always smelled like pine and damp earth. Normally, it felt safe. Warm. A place filled with childhood memories, holiday dinners, the sound of her humming while she cooked. But that night, as we pulled into the driveway, something felt wrong. The air was too still. The trees weren't swaying. The porch light flickered once, then died. Liam unbuckled himself with a happy little hum, as if we weren't running for our lives from something we couldn't understand. Emily and I barely spoke as we got out, just hurried toward the door, our bags slung over our shoulders. I knocked fast, too fast, my pulse hammering. It took a second, but then I heard my mother's voice. Coming. The door swung open, and there she was, Mom. Dressed in her old sweater, hair in a messy bun, blinking at me in confusion. Honey. What are you doing here so late? I didn't even try to explain. We need to stay here for a few nights. She frowned, glancing at Emily, then at Liam, who was already pushing past her into the house. Of course, but... just for a few nights, Mom. Please. She hesitated, clearly uncomfortable with how shaken I looked, but nodded. All right. I'll get the guest room ready. We stepped inside, locking the door behind us. The house smelled like cinnamon and old wood. The floors creaked under our weight, the walls lined with old family photos. It should have felt safe. But I couldn't shake this horrible feeling crawling under my skin. Like we had brought something with us. That night, we slept in the guest room. It was small but cozy, warm yellow walls, an old wooden bed, a dresser against the far wall. Mom had left out fresh blankets, and Liam curled up immediately, his stuffed dinosaur tucked under his arm. Emily and I didn't talk much as we climbed in beside him. She knew. I knew. Something was wrong. The moment I turned off the light, I felt it. The room was too quiet. The kind of silence that presses against your skull, making your heartbeat sound too loud. Emily was stiff beside me. Liam shifted in his sleep. And then, from the hallway. Creak. I froze. Another creak. The sound of a footstep. Slow. Deliberate. Moving past the guest room door. Emily reached for my hand under the blankets, her fingers ice cold. Neither of us moved. Neither of us breathed. The footsteps stopped. Right outside our door. I couldn't see anything in the darkness, but I could feel something on the other side. Watching. Waiting. Then. A soft knock. Barely a sound. I squeezed Emily's hand so tight I thought I'd break it. The knock came again. Louder. And then. Liam stirred. He let out a sleepy noise, rolling onto his back. His little voice clear in the silence. Daddy? Is the man coming in? The doorknob twisted that I couldn't breathe. The doorknob twisted again. A slow, deliberate motion, like whoever was on the other side wasn't in a hurry. Like they wanted us to hear it. Liam shifted again, sitting up slightly. In the dim glow of the streetlight leaking through the curtains, I could see his small, sleepy silhouette. His tiny hands rubbing his eyes. "Daddy?" Emily squeezed my hand so tight my bones ached. I forced myself to speak, but my voice barely came out. "Stay in bed, buddy." Liam yawned. "But he's..." The doorknob stopped moving. Silence. The kind that makes your ears ring. Then the door opened. I don't mean it swung open. No. It drifted. Like something had pushed it just enough for the hinges to give way. The hallway was pitch black. The air felt wrong. Heavy. Almost electric, like the air before a thunderstorm. There was nothing there. No shape. No shadow. But I could feel it. The same feeling you get when someone is standing right behind you. Close enough to touch. Emily's breath hitched. Then Liam giggled. A soft, sleepy sound. Like he had just remembered a funny joke. Then he did something that made my stomach drop. He lifted his arms up. Like a child asking to be picked up. Reaching toward the darkness. I grabbed him. Yanked him back so hard he yelped, his little body trembling against my chest. The room turned ice cold. Emily was crying now, her hands over her mouth. I pulled Liam closer, whispering into his hair, "Go back to sleep, buddy. It's okay. It's okay." But I wasn't sure if that was true. Because something was still there. Standing in the doorway. Watching. Liam sighed against my chest, already drifting back to sleep. Then, barely above a whisper, he mumbled something. Something that sent a shiver down my spine. "I told you, Daddy. He doesn't like Grandma's house." And then, just like that, the door swung shut. Hard enough to shake the walls. Emily let out a small sob. I held Liam tighter, heart pounding against my ribs. And in the darkness, I swore I heard it. A slow, distant sound. Something retreating. Footsteps. Moving down the hall. And then silence. We didn't sleep that night. We left at sunrise. Told my mom there was a family emergency, packed up, and got the hell out. We didn't go home. We booked a motel. Stayed there for a week. And when we finally did go back, the hallway felt different. Empty. Like whatever had been there was gone. But even now, some nights, when the house is quiet, and the world is still, I swear I hear it. A soft creak in the hallway. A slow knock at the door. And sometimes, just for a second, when I pass by the baby monitor at night, I swear I see something. A shape. Standing in the corner of Liam's room. Just watching. Waiting.